Goblins, Ogres, Trolls, Orcs, Gnolls. These are some of the most iconic creatures of fantasy, and especially of D&D. Wouldn't it be great if there was a resource that brought all those into one place and gave us a lot more variety to put into our games, and maybe even some playable versions of them for our players? Well, lucky for us, Nord Games has done just that with their book, Revenge of the Horde. So today, let's take a look at that book. Let's get into it. Hey everybody, I'm Joe, and this is the DM Toolbox, your channel for all the things you need to help improve your D&D games. Before we get started today, don't forget to go down below and hit that subscribe button. When I hit 500 subs, which is coming up fast, I'm going to be giving away this book, 5th edition Foes from Frog God Games. This is a 5th edition monster book with a 1st edition feel. It is an awesome resource for any DM. So if you haven't subscribed, do so now, and make sure you share it out and get others to subscribe. The faster we get to 500, the faster your chances of winning this book is. Also, if you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. You can also follow me on Twitter at toolbox_DM, where I always tweet out information about upcoming Kickstarters and other projects that are worth checking out. You can also follow me on TikTok at DM Toolbox, where I do a lot of short video reviews of a lot of other products. So let's talk about the Horde. What does the Horde invoke in your mind? For me, I think it kind of brings me back to some of my World of Warcraft days, the Orcs and the Trolls and stuff of the Horde. And that's kind of what this book is like. This book focuses on those types of creatures, our Goblins, our Orcs, our Trolls, our Ogres, all those kind of Horde type monsters that we face in D&D. And what I've kind of found over time is that I tend to lean on a lot of these types of creatures in the early levels of my game, but there's not a lot of variety in them. They're kind of boring sometimes. There's one or two types of each one, and it just gets a little redundant. And I want some more flavor, especially when you have like a big group of a type of character, like an Orc or a bunch of Gnolls. You don't want 10 of the same type of Gnoll with the same stat block. You want to change things up a bit. And that's what this book does. So this is part of Nord Games' Game Master Toolbox, the Ultimate Bestiary, Revenge of the Horde. Now, this is from the same line as the Dreaded Curse book, which I covered a few weeks ago. I can put a link to that. But it is an awesome book. And what this book does is kind of dives into those different races of creatures and breaks them out into a little bit more detail and gives us a lot of variety in our stat blocks. So let's take a look. As always, I like to start off with our table of contents. And you can see here, there's some great art on this page. And what this book does is it goes through by chapter with each creature type. So we start off with bugbears, then we get into gnolls, goblins, hobgoblins, kobolds, ogres, akoti, which are basically rat people, and orcs, and then finally trolls. Then we get into some beasts of the Horde, which are like the animal companions that some of these might have, kind of like your wargs for goblins or something like that. And then it gets into some of the tools of the Horde, which are basically just items or weapons, things that you might find on these creatures when you kill them, or that they might use against your party. And then we get into some playable races. So we do get some player versions of a lot of these creatures for our players to play, which is kind of nice. And then the last chapter, they go into some maps and things like that we can use in our games. So I want to just maybe pick one or two of these and kind of take a look at them. I am a big fan of Gnolls. So let's take a look at the Gnolls. Okay, Gnolls. So here's our chapter on the Gnolls. And the way this starts off is with a little paragraph here that's a kind of a flavor text that you might use to describe a Gnoll encounter. And each chapter kind of has that. And then it gives us kind of an overview about Gnolls. Goes into things like languages and common names. And then it gets into the Gnolls themselves. But we're not just going to look at Gnolls with some stat blocks. It actually breaks the Gnolls out into several types of Gnolls. So rather than just Gnolls, we have plains Gnolls, which would live on like the plains or the savannas. We would have gutter Gnolls, which would be like the ones in the streets of a city or in the sewers. And we'd have rock Gnolls, which are maybe like the ones that live in caves or mountains. And then there's some information on Gnoll clans and how they form their clans. So if we're looking at the plains Gnolls, it's going to give us some information on the culture, on their environment, and even how to role play those Plains Gnolls. So each type of Gnoll has a little bit of different flavor. So it gives us a little bit of information for the DM on how to role play them properly. And then their combat tactics, how they act in combat. We then get this nice little section with some tables. And what this is for forming war bands. So there are 5 tables here by CR. CR 1 through 4, 5 through 8, 9 through 12, 13 through 16, and 17 through 20. Each of these tables is a D8 roll, and you roll on it depending on the CR of the encounter you want to throw at your party, and it will form a warband for you that you can throw. So these kind of pre-made encounters. And then after that, we get into our actual stat blocks. So we have here the Gnoll, or the Plains Gnoll Runner, followed by the Archer and the Spearman. And then we'll get into, we have the Gnoll Warrior, which I love the art on this one. And then we've got a Shaman. And finally, we have the Clan Mother, which would be kind of like the clan leader. And she's got abilities that will give any of the Gnolls in the party an additional 1d4 damage as long as they can see her. So really, really cool how they've given us, so many unique stat blocks and flavors of Gnoll that we can throw at our party. And this is just for Plains Gnolls. Then we also have these little tables you'll see here for some that we can roll on for things that they might have on them. So that, for instance, the Clan Mother has a D12 table. When you roll, you'll either get 1d4 days of dried meat rations, possible trinket, which they have a trinket table on here, a tattered coin purse containing 17 5d6 silver pieces and 3 1d6 gold pieces, or a sack containing 1 potion of hill giant strength. So just, kind of in each of these stat blocks has one of these tables. So it kind of helps you to determine what the players might find on them besides just weapons and armor or, generic money or something. You can add a little flavor. And then we do get right here, we have a couple more tables here. So we've got the Plains Gnolls trinket table. So if they do have a trinket, you can roll on that. And we have a Plains Gnoll layer details. So this would give us some information about their possible layer if that's where our party is going. And then we get, next page, we get into our Gunner Gnolls. And it kind of does the same thing, right? Role-playing them, their environment, their combat tactics, forming their war bands, and then a bunch of different stat blocks. Now, I've kind of combined these stat blocks. I just said, rather than Gunner Gnolls or Plains Gnolls, I said Gnolls. But I picked a couple of these stat blocks from each one and had an encounter and just mix and match. And it was a lot of fun. And it really gave some cool flavor to my encounters. So this book does that for, the Goblins. It does it for the Orcs. It does it for the Ogres. And you really do get some nice variety in there, which I think is the biggest strength of this book. And like I said, if you're playing and you're like, we're in the mountains, so I'm going to use, rock Gnolls, that's fine. But if you want to just grab some from each area, you can. I really have found that Nord Games is a company that really creates books that help inspire me. They really help to get my creative juices going when I use them to make things that are my own. They just they don't just give you material here and say, here, play this. They give you material and say, here, let this inspire you. Especially with books like Spectacular Settlements, Treacherous Traps, The Ultimate Guide to Alchemy, Crafting, and Enchanting. Those books have these great things in them that you can use, but they also really get your brain turning and, have you want to make something your own. And I even feel that they do that really well with their monster books, because as I kind of read through this, I start reading about, the Goblin Society, the Gnoll Society, and their tactics. I start thinking about, well, where are they living? Why are they living there? What are they doing? Why are they attacking people? And it just, reading this kind of just gets that creative juice going for me. So I'm a big fan of how Nord Games presents their material. I just find it very, inspirational as a DM to, help me write my own material, which I really, really like. The other part of this book, like I said, towards the back, we do have a section with the beasts, they say. So the beasts of the Horde. So we'll see just kind of creatures or pets that they would have with them. which is kind of cool. So, you know, again, more things that you can have in that warband. And, you know, they do reference these in those warband tables. So a lot of cool options there. Then we get into the tools of the Horde. So these are things like a bugbear harpoon or a fire breath potion or a Gnoll battle brew. Just, you know, there's extra things that some of them may have on them that are unique to their race, right? Goblin liquor, sleeping sap. So these are just extra things that you can have on them when you defeat them, or that they might have on them that you can give them to use against your players in combat. So I do like that a lot. And then we get into our playable races section. So we have a playable bugbear. We have playable gnolls, goblins, hobgoblins, kobolds, the rat folk, the Cody, I think is how you pronounce this, and then the orcs. And that's full-blooded orc, by the way, not a half-orc. And what's kind of cool about a lot of these, like, you know, you can say, well, Wizards of the Coast already has playable goblins. But what they do here is they give you the Sly Goblin, and they give you traits, and then they give you forest and hill goblins as well. So they give you basically sub-races of these races. You know, if you look here with the gnolls, you have your gnoll traits, but then you've got your gutter gnoll, your plains gnoll, and your rock gnoll. So you've got these sub-races of the gnoll that you can play. So it just adds that extra layer. If you've ever had a player who said, you know, I want to play a goblin, but I want to make a change, or I don't like this, or I like a little bit different flavor to it, you know, this kind of gives you a nice little outline. And sure, with Tasha's, you know, we can do a lot of stuff with the heritages and things like that, or the lineages, but this gives you a nice, you know, balanced outline, which I really like. And then the final pages of the book are these layer maps that they have. So if you have the PDF, you can just print these out, or, you know, if you have the physical book, you can do, you know, color photocopy and throw these on the table, or blow them up, or bring them onto your VTT, or do whatever you want with them. But it's nice to just kind of have those you know, ready-made maps. And then in the back, they do have, for the index, they've got all the monsters in alphabetical order and by challenge rating. So really nice. And I always find challenge rating sorting to be probably the most useful for me, because when I'm building an encounter, I generally have an idea of the strength of the creature I want. And, you know, sometimes I just find a stat block that's either too strong or too weak that I really like. And, you know, you adjust it down or up to the CR you want, but it's nice to have that, you know, that list there. So I think they did a great job on this book. I'm a big fan of the Game Master Toolbox books from Nord. They just, like I said, they're well laid out, well designed. The Dreaded Curse was probably one of the best ones I've ever bought. And Revenge of the Horde is, you know, just its cousin. You know, it's just, instead of undead, we're looking at these Horde type creatures. So if you're a fan of throwing these kinds of creatures at your players, but you do want that variety, this is a must-have book. And the good news is, Nord Games just restocked on these. They were out of stock on them for a while. I was actually planning on doing this video a couple weeks ago, but since they're out of stock, I decided to hold off. And it turns out they just got stock back in this week or last week. So I figured this would be a perfect time to put the video out. You know, they're fully stocked on all their books right now. And, you know, Christmas is coming up. This could be a good gift for your DM players. So if you're a player and you're watching and you like some of these maybe playable races, buy the book for the DM. You know, he wins and you win. But yeah, that's it, guys. So check out the link in the description for a link to Nord's site where you can pick up this book and a ton of other amazing, awesome books from Nord Games and a bunch of their affiliate partners like Kobold Press, like Luresmith, and several others out there that they do fulfillment and ordering for. So well worth a look at the Nord site. And again, don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you haven't, so you can possibly win 5th edition foes. As of the recording of this video, I believe we are at 451 subscribers. So we are getting real close to that 500 mark. I'm really looking forward to giving this book to one of you. So that's it for now, guys. Until next time, roll those dice.